Well, today is the big day. Actually, on second thought, it's not big, it's huge. 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 We are finally getting back on the 31 Roadster project. Now, if you don't recognize this car, well, where the hell have you been? I mean, this thing is practically famous. Okay, maybe not, but it did get quite a few views. But anyway, I did a couple of videos on this on getting it running and all that jazz. I'll put links to those down in the description. You can go check those out if you didn't see them. So long story short, did get it running, however the engine is junk. So I've taken a little time and formulated a good plan as to what I want to do with this thing. And we're finally going to get started on that. Now before I go into what I'm actually going to do with this, we need to get it out of here and into the front. So we got to get some stuff moved around and get this hauled out front. So we finally got everything moved around, got this thing up into the front bay where I can work on it. And now I know you want to know what the actual plan is for this thing. Well, in the second video I did on this, I asked you guys what you thought I should do with it. I gave a couple options, stuff that I thought would be a cool idea. I tallied up all the votes from the comments, and lo and behold, the winner was the Flathead V8, which is great because that's what I really wanted to do anyway. Now there was quite a few votes for, keeping it original and rebuilding this engine. I don't really want to spend that much money on it. If I had all kinds of money to blow, I'd probably order a brand new 5-main Burt's block and build up like a 110 horse banger motor for it. That'd be super cool, but very expensive as well. So we're going with a Flathead V8. Now I did have a few other votes. There was a couple for like a Pinto swap, and not really my thing, but that'd be kind of cool. There was also a couple votes for an electric conversion, which, no way. Nah. No way in hell. Absolutely not. Not a chance. No. So anyway, that's the route we're going with it. But there's a little more to the story than just doing a flathead swap. So I came up with a vision for this car, and what my plan is, we're going to build a pre-war traditional hot rod. Now, if you're not familiar with what that is, pre-war would be 1942 and older. Quick history lesson: in mid-1942, pretty much all domestic automotive production stopped, and everything went to building tanks and guns and jeeps and whatever. So between 1942 and 1945, there are very few, if any, civilian vehicles floating around. The backstory to my vision on this would be a guy coming back from World War II, late 1945, somewhere 1946, and decides he wants to build something. So he finds a car for, $20 or whatever they were going for at the time. And he doesn't have a whole lot of money to work with, so he wants to build something cool with what he has available, which is essentially what's going to be found in junkyards. So in 1946, the newest thing you're going to find in a junkyard is a 1942. So that's what's going to limit us to 1942 and older. So that's where this car is going to get its nickname. I'm going to call it the Junkyard Roadster, because we're going to build it out of junkyard parts. There's not going to be any aftermarket aluminum heads or 4-inch dropped axles or any of that stuff. Everything I do to this car is going to be factory parts that he would have found in a scrapyard or on the side of the road or wherever in 1946. Kind of the reason I went that route is because I think I already have about 95% of the parts I need to do this. And that's going to be great, because here comes the really tough part of this. I want to have this done for the Pine Tree Race. Now, if you guys aren't familiar, we have an event up in here in Maine. It's called the Pine Tree Jamboree. This year it's later, luckily, so that gives me a little bit more time. So it takes place at an old World War II era auxiliary landing strip in Winterport, which is just outside of Bangor, Maine. It's a really cool event. It's put on by Eli English at Traditional Speed and Custom out of New Hampshire. It's only been going on for a few years, but it seems to be getting bigger every year. It's a really, really cool event. The problem is it's now the end of July, and that is September 17th. So we've got less than 2 months to get this thing done from day one. So I guess that means I should stop talking and start working. So I'm just going to address this right now, because I know the comments are coming. All the guys that are going to complain that I'm ruining a piece of history or that I need to restore it to factory perfect condition. Well, first off, like I said in the last video, they made 50-something thousand of these. There are still thousands upon thousands of this exact same car floating around. It is not at all rare. 100 years from now, it's still not going to be a rare car. Second, comes the investment point of it. It'll cost probably 20 grand to restore this thing back to really nice. And on top of the cost of buying it, and when it's all said and done, what's it going to be worth? 16, 18 grand? Maybe. That doesn't sound like a great investment. I'd rather take the 5 grand and blow it on coke and hookers. I'd probably have a lot better time. My plan for this car is it's going to be something fairly unique. It's certainly not the only one around, but there's not a lot of really period correct builds. On top of that, like I said earlier, I already have most of the stuff to do it, so I should be able to have this car done for a pretty small amount of money. And if I keep it, cool, I'll have a cheap car to drive. If I sell it, I'll probably make money on it. So, win-win. Now, before we go tearing this thing apart, I want to give you a good look at a few things condition-wise that really stand out. Now, don't get me wrong, the body on this thing is incredibly solid, but it certainly has some sins, and I'm sure there's going to be some more uncovered as we dig into it more. But obviously, this side is all rotted out, so this running board, splash apron, and front fender are complete trash. Not to mention the fact that whoever put these on here didn't actually bolt the fenders back on, they just welded everything together. So this is all now one piece. It won't be in a minute when I cut it off. But so the fender is probably savable. I mean, it does have a crack there, it's not a big deal. The bigger issue is all down in here. This is all really, really pitted and super thin, and again, it's welded here and welded all the way up through here. Yeah, it's a mess. So all that's going. I'm not entirely sure what the plan is yet fender-wise. I'd like to try to keep it looking like it does. We'll see how that goes, but first this all needs to come apart. So let's start tearing into it. show you guys real quick some of the quality work that was done on this the last time it was worked on. So the original connector is gone, which is not a big deal because it's a crappy design anyway. So they just crimped the socket wires to the actual wiring harness, and then they used a nice piece of string on the conduit as a retainer. So that's pretty good stuff right there. Not to mention that every single bolt on this thing was a different size and different style. There was one Phillips screw here, a bolt there, a flathead screw here, a different size bolt there. The headlight bar has two different size bolts here, one original style bolt here, a different size bolt there. So pretty good stuff. A little more evidence of hackery here. Some big washers and giant bolt, random nut holding the radiator in. Different length bolts, different number of washers. Yeah, it's fine. I think this is my favorite so far. So the front bolt on the rear hood latch was a carriage bolt, a nut, a bigger nut to apparently act as a spacer, and then a wing nut on top of that. So it's pretty awesome. Somebody's been doing a little patchy in here. Not too bad, but just the bottom couple inches there, really. Not sure what that is. What the hell is that? Tape? Yeah, not horrible. Well, we ended up with a couple piles of parts here. Pretty good pile of dirt and rust and old bolts as well. What is this crap? No one told me I'd have to get dirty today. I'm gonna have to talk to my union rep about this one. So we didn't make it quite as far as I was hoping today, but still made pretty decent progress. I wanted to have the body about ready to come off, and we're not quite there, but pretty close. But it doesn't really matter because the body needs to be braced up before it gets pulled off anyway, so I still need to get some 1-inch tubing. We'll do some braces in there, keep it from when we pick it up off the frame. So hopefully tomorrow we can get most of that squared away and maybe even get the body off tomorrow. So